Assalamu alaikum. This is Pasha, the author of the Double Cross. Okay, I'm going to attempt to bring the story of the no-white or Europeans in Egypt during the time of the pharaohs or the prophets to a close. I believe I've addressed this issue with enough information for you to find the truth on your own if you want it. Question: if Europeans were so great in Egypt, Judea, the land of Canaan, etc., why hasn't any lasting temples or monuments been found showing their lasting greatness there? When you look at Egypt, there is nothing there that says Europeans. When you look in Babylon, modern-day Iraq, there is nothing there. When you look in Jerusalem, there is nothing there except imported Europeans. When you look in Palestine, whose original name is Judea, up until the Romans changed it in the 2nd century, there is nothing showing any white people existing as a group, a nation, or a tribe. Nowhere in all the biblical history is there contained in the Bible where you find a location of Europeans past existence. All around the globe, you can search and you will see only the Colosseum in Greece, built by homosexual, pedophile, perverted men who worship their own beauty. When you see the statues of these men naked with their micro penises, they are all together, grouped up. But rarely do you see statues of women. Let's say of Venus, the goddess of fertility. Did you know that the first beauty contest was created by Greek men for them? And the first one of its kind was for good-looking men, not women. Yes, historically, the first beauty contest on earth was for men. So they built monuments to themselves and created gods of themselves. But outside of this, there is nothing showing or suggesting that Europeans received divine laws governing mankind from the Most High. Everything Europeans received, they did so after our people abandoned it. Later, they stole it. The wealth that they stole from our homeland in the lands we populated and left our seas behind, the brown, the red, and the yellow, built their Gothic churches, cathedrals, and the Vatican. Imagine the great wealth of gold, diamonds, silver, emeralds, and other precious stones and metals collected by constant slave labor around the globe for 400 years and counting. It's still going on in parts of Africa today, while the people born and raised there for thousands of years are starving. In 356 AD, Emperor Constantius II attacked and closed down Egyptian temples in order to destroy the foundation of Egyptian religious mystique. In 380 AD, Emperor Theodosius decreed Catholic Christianity as the sole state religion of Egypt, abolished and destroyed everything indigenous. 11 years later, he turns around in 391 AD and massacred the last of the priests at Memphis, eliminating the threat of the fraud committed by the Catholic Church. This has been their pattern, their proven pattern, their proven method of operation for rewriting and implementing themselves into our history for hundreds of years. Histories they know nothing about. History they did not participate in. First, they killed the people, destroying the oral history. Then they destroyed the written records and rewriting it as if it came from them. Europeans have created and manufactured lies about who they are and what and who we are. And what's crazy is that they are living a lie, and so are we. The idea that Egypt and the Egyptian people had enslaved God's chosen people, white European people. It's ridiculous. How did they get there? The Europeans. You hear this lying narrative over and over and watch it every year around the time of the pagan winter solstice celebration, cloaked as Christmas, with the story of a European Moses. But to date, no one in any movie, history book, or even in the Bible has shown how European people got to Egypt, lived there for 400 years as black, then got back to Europe as white. How did they do this? All the stories of these people begin with them being enslaved in Egypt. Why? What did they do? And if they had been there long enough to eventually become slaves by the hundreds and by the thousands, they must have come from somewhere on the continent. They were not imported from Europe to Egypt because Europe did not exist. And if so, where are the records? No one has said Europeans were shipped to Egypt and enslaved. So how did white people come to live and be enslaved in Egypt, a land full of blacks, when they did not become travelers by sea until the 1400s? They talk as if they would have us in the world believe that they were born and raised there. And if they were born and raised there, and they are descendants of the homeland, not Europe, and if they were born and raised on our continent, they are not white nor European. Perhaps this is why Hitler did not see them as pure Europeans and exterminated them. This is the only way that they can claim an association with the prophets born and raised on our homeland. Anything other than that is both a lie and impossible. It's common sense that a nation of people that did not exist as a nation at the time of any event in history could not have participated in those events because they were not there. At the time that Abraham and Moses lived, there was no Europe. It did not exist. Period. Mesopotamia was the breadbasket. Question: does anyone know the origin of the Europeans? We know the origins of the Aborigine meaning the first man and woman on the earth. We know that his remains were discovered on our home continent, that we share his DNA and his wife, Hua, renamed Eve. So what is the origin of the European, the so-called white man? They would have us believe that Jacob, 10 sons, were white shepherds. And their white brother Joseph, born by a black woman, who was betrayed by his brothers and came into Egypt, and they generated thousands of Europeans in Egypt from these 10 sons. These are the same foolish people that actually wrote in the Bible that Jacob, the father of these 11 sons, wrestled with God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, and defeated him. Read it for yourself. According to them, in the Bible, Jacob, a man, beat God up. It's this kind of blasphemy that our people believe and hold on to that has kept us small and ignorant, just like our captors. This lame, this European, has come up with all kinds of nonsense sciences. Cro-Magnon man, Neanderthal man, monkey man, etc., to throw us off the track. However, in all his explaining, he's yet to lay out where he came from as a separate species from the black, the brown, the red, and the yellow. Why is all nations of people's hair black and his blonde? Why is it that all other nations of people have the melanin molecule in their skin pigmentation, which is an energy conduct, and they have it only in their green or blue eyes? Allah's greatest creation, the sun, the one that gives life to everything on the earth, burns them up and gives them cancer and other melanomas. And guess what? They know all of this. It's why they pretend to be priests. Let me say that again. It's why they pretend to be priests and popes and missionaries and other men representing the Most High. They pretend that they are chosen. It's a show. But in fact, they are actually cursed by the Most High and their own existence. This is the true reason behind their creation of all the blasphemy and lies that go against the decrees and laws of the Most High. In God's Ten Commandments, He says, do not worship anything in the heavens nor on earth. But Europeans gave you the worship of Jesus. And they said you could worship Him because He's God's Son. They created that. They did. The Europeans, it did not exist before they said it. Check the history. Nowhere. The Messiah lived on our continent, for thousands of years we knew of the stories of Him. And no one called Him the Son of God. He didn't call Himself that. But they did. They called Him God's Son, so you could worship Him too. Obliterating the first commandment of the 10 the Most High sent down. So, you can just throw that one out the window, that first commandment. Do not make graven images. Do not bow down to them. But they gave you statues of Mary and her son Jesus in a manger. So, you could throw that commandment out the window also. Hey, this is not complicated. All it takes is for people to begin using their common sense instead of ignoring it and falling for what they were taught without studying on their own to confirm. Question: why would any people put their trust in the people that had enslaved them, raped them, murdered them, and taken everything they had, including their names and belief system? Anyone should know about the 3 Judean priests that were enslaved and taken to Babylon. They refused their names being changed. They refused to change the food they ate. And they refused to worship an idol. These 3 very same things were demanded of us when we were captured and carried away. Do you know how many centuries had passed between the Messiah living in Egypt, Judea, then being taken up to the heavens from the continent of Africa, the same continent we called home? And no one on that entire continent knew Him there as the Son of God, nor as European with blonde hair and blue eyes, until the 14th century, where European barbarians became sailors and left the island of Europe with their diseases, their muskets, and their pagan God, Son, Holy Ghost worship they created for themselves. This is the double cross. Assalamu alaikum.